Hey guys, this is Elysian PODFIC, and today we're going to be reading Insane or Not Insane, that is the question. Alright, what's all this then? This is Chapter 5. The phone rang just after midnight. Jason hadn't been expecting it. He sat in the half-dark of his apartment, back against the couch, long legs stretched out on the hardwood floor, half watching the headlines crawl across the muted TV. The screen still displayed a split shot at Arkham and the courthouse from earlier that day, flashing the headline that had gone viral by sunset. Todd vs. Joker. Gotham's darkest mind meets its sharpest. Someone at the Gotham Gazette thought they were clever, and maybe they were. It was pithy enough to sell, ominous enough to get clicks, but Jason had stared at it for a solid 10 minutes when it first hit the reels. His face unreadable as the article scrolled beneath it. The city didn't know the half of it, didn't know that this wasn't some last-minute assignment dropped in his lap. It had been his idea. He'd set this entire thing into motion years ago, carefully building the credentials, laying the groundwork, working case after case, publishing in every journal that mattered, until the field couldn't ignore him anymore. He hadn't just agreed to be involved, he had made damn sure they would ask him to lead it. All of it, the interviews, the evaluation, the high-profile psychiatric analysis of Gotham's most infamous inmate. Then he'd be the one sitting across from that man, and standing clinical, professional, human. The thought alone made his skin crawl. He didn't know what unsettled him more, the weight of everything he'd planned, or the part of him that still wanted to see it through. The phone buzzed again. He recognized the contact before the name even lit up. Roy. Jason leaned over the coffee table, picked up the device, then accepted the call. "Tell me you're drunk, stranded, or bleeding. Otherwise, this better be a booty call." Roy's voice crackled through, unmistakably awake and smug. "Wow, you answer like this and you're still single? I'm shocked." Jason exhaled through his nose, slouching deeper into the couch, and threw an arm over his eyes. "Harper, I swear to God." "Relax, lover boy. I saw the news." There was a pause, less performative, more loaded. "Didn't think I'd be reading Todd vs. Joker, Gotham's most darkest mind meets its sharpest, over my midnight sandwich." Roy's voice drawled, equal parts amusement and concerned. "You couldn't have warned me?" Jason let out a quiet snort, tipping his head back against the couch with a soft thud. "I didn't know you still read newspapers." "I don't. My phone read it at me. That AI assistant you made me install because my last one sounded like a concussed robot gave me the news briefing. She was very chipper about it." "Great," Jason muttered. The synthetic voice of progress thinks I'm a headline. "She called you sharp, though. Gotta count for something." He could hear Roy settling in on the other end. The rustle of sheets or maybe the creak of that god-awful futon in his tiny Star City apartment. Jason imagined him squinting at the ceiling in the dark, one hand cradling the phone, and the other probably holding a stale protein bar. "I take it the bats know now?" Roy asked, voiced gently this time. Jason stared at the shadows crawling across the ceiling. The apartment was still mostly unpacked, intentionally so. Like, if he didn't put books on the shelves or hang anything on the walls, it wouldn't feel real. Like, this wasn't a real home, just a pause between storms. "Yeah," he said eventually. "They know." Roy was silent for a beat, then, "How bad?" Jason hesitated. The memory of Dick's expression flickered behind his eyes, tight-lipped betrayal. Bruce, a stone wall of disappointment and control. Damien, radiating suspicion like a lit fuse. Tim. Jason still didn't know what to make of Tim's reaction. Maybe no one did. "Let's just say," he said slowly, "they weren't thrilled to see me quoted in the Gazette with a shiny new title and a public contract. I mean, they could have Googled you." "Yeah, but that would imply Bruce trusts Google." Roy laughed softly. "Touché." After a beat, he asked, "So, what now? Full disclosure, group therapy with extra glowering?" Jason snorted. "Nah, strategy meeting today. Legal procedure, psychological protocol, potential fallouts, light stuff." Roy made a mock gagging noise. "Ugh, brainy batshit hour, that sounds like hell." "You say that like you've never survived a debrief with Oliver." And I was really brave about it. The Archer's tone implied that he had deserved at least a Medal of Honor for it. Another silence stretched between them, comfortable and long. Jason felt it settle around him like a familiar blanket, frayed at the edges but warm where it counted. "So," Jason asked after a while, "how's your drama? Queen still playing absentee mentor?" Roy exhaled through his nose. "You know how it is. One minute he's giving arousing speeches about teamwork and unity. Next thing you know, he's jetting off to chase eco-terrorists in Bhutan without saying a word. Classic Ollie." "Classic Ollie," Roy echoed. "We did have a talk, though. Brief, semi-civilized. No arrows were thrown. Low bar, but progress." Another pause, the kind that only came with years of knowing each other. Jason let it wash over him, the quiet hum of the city outside his window filling in the gaps. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Gotham never slept, but tonight, it felt like it was holding its breath. "I meant what I said earlier," Roy murmured, voice softer now. "You should have called." "I know. You doing okay?" Jason didn't answer immediately. His eyes tracked the cracks in the ceiling, the flicker of the streetlight through the blinds, the cup of cold coffee still sitting on the windowsill. There were a dozen ways to lie. He'd used all of them before, but tonight, with the weight of what was coming pressing down in his chest, he didn't want to. "I'm trying," he said. Roy didn't push. He never did. He just stayed on the line, breathing quiet and steady in Jason's ear. The two of them tethered across time zones and scars and sleepless nights. They talked until the sky began to lighten, about everything and nothing, the trial, old wounds, bad takeout, the time Roy got chased by a pack of raccoons outside a safe house in Bloodhaven, the future, even if neither of them dared call it that. Eventually, Roy cleared his throat. Jason could hear the rustle of him sitting up a bit, the soft creak of his bed frame. "So, Jay, hypothetically speaking," Roy said, drawing the words out like he was testing the waters, "if a certain archer, name withheld for anonymity, were experimenting with a new type of adrenaline-based combat stimulant, and said stimulant had, let's say, melted through the vial, how bad would that be?" Jason blinked, then laughed, quiet but genuine. "Jesus, Roy, are you trying to give yourself a heart attack before you hit 35? "I said hypothetically. You're asking me, as a licensed medical professional, if weaponized adrenaline goo that burns through glass is a good idea? I'm asking if maybe it means I'm getting the mix right." Jason groaned, scrubbing a hand over his face. "You're a menace. That's why you love me." He didn't say it in a teasing way, not really. Just matter of fact, like it was the truth both of them knew and never had to spell out. Jason didn't argue. He leaned his head back, let the smile tug at the corners of his mouth. "Send me the compound details tomorrow. I'll look it over before your eyebrows fall off." "Already did. Check your email." "You never learn, do you?" "Not when it comes to mad science and personal chemistry sets." Jason shook his head, the last of the tension easing from his shoulders. The conversation drifted on, lighter now, orbiting weird side projects and hypothetical vigilante upgrades. Roy had a dozen half-baked ideas, some of them clever, some of them downright alarming, and Jason shot down at least half of them with dry sarcasm as someone who'd patched Roy up too many times to count. By the time they finally hung up, Jason's throat was raw and his heart was a little less heavy. The city outside kept turning, but for a few hours at least, he'd remembered what it felt like not to carry it alone. The briefing room was tucked into the third floor of the Arkham Administrative Annex, far from the general population and even further from the sunlight. The windows were frosted, the walls were soundproof. The table was bolted down, and a faint chemical tank, disinfectant or antiseptic, hung in the air, clinging to the skin like sweat that wouldn't dry. Jason arrived first. Of course he did. By the time the rest of the team filed in, he had already reviewed their profiles twice and memorized a seating chart the administration had prepared. He wasn't looking to impress anyone, he just didn't like surprises. 4 specialists, none of them local. Smart. Dr. Leem, lean and blunt, had a background in high-stakes competency evaluations and an expression like she was always holding in a sigh. Dr. Torres, mid-40s, known for her work on forensic risk assessments and the psychology of criminal deviance, carried herself with the calm of someone who didn't speak unless she'd already decided she was right. Dr. Verma, the youngest aside from Jason, was bookish and sharp. With the recent publication on malingering detection tools that Jason had bookmarked last fall, And then there was Miss Sinclair, legal psych liaison, formerly of the Federal DA's Behavioral Criminal Unit. Crisp razor intellect, color-coded notes. He waited until they settled, a nod serving as both a greeting and a cue. "Thanks for coming. I know you didn't sign up for this." His tone was dry, almost conversational. "I didn't either." That earned a flicker of attention, Torres arching a brow, Sinclair glancing up from his tablet. Jason let the pause breathe for a moment. "We were all brought in by the Special Crimes Committee independently. No affiliations, no prior evaluations on the subject. That's by design." He tapped on the console of the table, lighting up the secure interface. A blank session log blinked to life. "Our role is to conduct a full forensic psychiatric evaluation on the subject, historical and current. This includes standardized diagnostic tool-structured interviews, and a review of any available medical or institutional records. Everything under court seal. Everything off the record." Sinclair nodded. "The DA's office is expected full chain of custody, documentation for all findings. No raw notes to leave this floor. I'll manage encryption protocols and submit through their secure channel." "Good," Jason said. "And just to be explicit, no leaks. No anonymous commentary. I don't care if it's a friend, a spouse, or a colleague. If anything you say winds up in the news, you're off the team. No second chances." Verma glances between the others. "Has that already been an issue?" "Not yet," Jason said. "Let's keep it that way." They moved on to procedure. The room shifted subtly, postures straightening, voices neutralizing into professional cadence. The basics were covered. They'd begin with the SAPROF, a structured tool for protective factors and violence risk. Followed it with the MMPI-3, a comprehensive personality inventory. Then MFAST for malingering detection, and possibly HCR20, if initial signs pointed to a high risk of violent recidivism. All of it standard for a case that's volatile, but standard in Gotham was still a loaded word. "The subject is not to be left alone with any evaluator," Jason said. 2-person minimum for every session. No schedule transparency, he doesn't get to know who's coming or when. "And you'll be present for all of them?" Torres asked. "I'll take point," Jason confirmed. "Not for control, for containment. If he clocks their rhythm, he'll exploit it. I've already arranged rotation blocks with the security team. We'll have a medical personnel on standby." Liam frowned slightly. "So you're expecting violence?" "I'm expecting escalation," Jason said simply. "Provocation, manipulation, noncompliance. If he sees an opening, he'll take it." He didn't say it with drama. It wasn't a threat. It was gravity. The Joker wouldn't scream or lunge. He'd smile, offer something clever. Ask a question you didn't realize was about you until you heard yourself answering it. "You've reviewed prior files?" Verma asked. "I couldn't find anything resembling a real psychiatric evaluation." "That's because there isn't one," Jason said. "No formal diagnostic procedure has ever been completed. No forensic evaluation, no treatment plan. He's been moved in and out of Arkham based on the institutional discretion and Batman's discretion. No court oversight, no documentation that means any clinical or legal standard." Torres frowned. "You're saying Gotham's never tried?" "They've tried," Jason said, "but nothing's ever stuck. There are incident reports, scattered intake logs, a few third-hand assessments from Arkham staff, none of them comprehensive or consistent. No formal diagnosis, no structured interviews, no court-ordered evaluations." He paused, glancing at the others. "Arkham hasn't been exactly a model of procedural integrity, and Gotham's judicial system never forced the issue. They threw him back in his cell until he breaks out again." The words didn't carry blame, not explicitly, but they didn't need to. Liam muttered something under her breath. It sounded like Jesus. "Now," Jason said, "it's different. This is the first time the case is being brought to trial, which means, for the first time, the burden of criminal responsibility falls on us. He's not quietly being sent back to Arkham, he's being tried, and our evaluation informs whether he can be held accountable." Another silence. The weight of it landed differently now. Sinclair recovered first. "Let's address the other elephant in the room." Jason waited. "You're the lead. And you're, 25? "Correct," Jason said evenly. "I've read your work," Torres said before Sinclair could continue. "The treatise on differential diagnosis of antisocial versus dissociative presentation, that was measured. Impressive." Jason gave a short nod, acknowledging the comment without letting it linger. "I'm not here because of my age," he said. I'm here because someone thought I could handle it. I didn't apply for this, I was asked. Liam tilted her head. And you accepted. I don't walk away from hard cases. A long beat passed. That's very brave, Torres said. Or very stupid. Hopefully neither. Something about the way he said it, flat but not defensive, seemed to settle the last of their nerves. No posturing, no speeches, just fact. Still, Liam wasn't quite done. You said you're from Gotham? Jason nodded once. Born and raised. That gives you an advantage, Verma said thoughtfully. Or a target on your back, Sinclair added. Jason didn't disagree. Either way, he said. I know what we're walking into. The Joker isn't just unpredictable, he's performative. He thrives on control, and when he doesn't have it, he shifts the game. He let the weight of that settle before continuing. I know you've dealt with violent offenders, sociopaths, manipulators, people who have done the worst things imaginable and smiled while doing it. But the Joker isn't a variation of them. He is not a spectrum point. He's an outlier. He doesn't operate within the same rules of impulse, motive, or pathology. He's what happens when the framework breaks. So don't go in expecting a diagnosis that makes sense. Go in expecting him to use the tools of evaluation against the process itself. Torres leaned forward slightly. And what's our goal exactly? What do we expect to get from him that no one else has? Jason looked around the table, each face trained on him, waiting. Clarity, he said. That was it. After another moment, Sinclair closed her tablet. Session 1 starts the day after tomorrow. I'll send the logistics pack tonight. Jason rose with the others, nodding once. Be ready. Alright, guys, and that is the end of Chapter 5 of Insane or Not Insane. That is the question by Alright, What's All This Then? I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you next chapter.